Yoane Wissa is back, and he gives Newcastle something that we've been missing all season. We have to admit that our attack hasn't been the same since Alexander Isak left, and Wissa might be the only player in the squad that can fix a certain problem that he left behind, because there's one part of his game that completely transformed our attack this season, and you'll see it clearly when we compare him to Nick Woltemade. But to understand why Vissa's return is so important, we have to look at the 3 issues that we haven't solved all season. Now, one of Newcastle's biggest problems this season is clear in the numbers, creating chances and scoring goals. And the main thing that Newcastle have struggled with is converting shots into goals. And the struggle to create clear-cut chances might come down to the fact that we have a totally different style of striker up top. Now, we all love Nick Woltemade, but we have to admit that we've had to adapt to him and he's had to adapt to us. And one of the biggest differences from Alexander Isak last season to Nick Woltemade this season is that Isak liked to stretch the opposition line, make those runs in behind, and Nick Woltemade loves to drop deep. And as a result of that, our whole style of play and how we attack had to change. But what hasn't helped is the over-reliance on Nick Woltemade. With Yoane Wissa and Asula out due to injury, a lot has been resting on Nick Woltemade's shoulders. Not only the goal-scoring burden in his first Premier League season, but we're unable to rest and rotate him in a Champions League campaign. And it's part of the reason why we're so poor chasing games, because there's no real option off the bench to really hurt the opposition. And this is where Yoane Wissa can fix all these problems. And there's one part of his game that not even Nick Woltemade offers that will completely transform our attack. Now, this graphic shows us the off-ball movements of Nick Woltemade last year with Stuttgart and Yoane Wissa with Brentford. There are 3 key types of movements that Yoane Wissa will bring to this team. The first is that cross receiver, that ability to have that sharp penalty box movement to get on the end of crosses, especially for us that love to cross the ball into the box, both aerially and along the ground, which we'll come on to later. That's going to be so useful this season. Then you got those runs ahead of the ball. That just means runs ahead of the person that's carrying the ball up the pitch. And again, you can see a difference between Nick Woltemade and Yoane Wissa. And probably the most important type of movement that Nick Woltemade just doesn't naturally bring to our team are those runs in behind. Now, one of the biggest strengths of Yoane Vissa's game is that pace and timing of movement in behind, both from deep and within the penalty box. And you can see it from this game against Nottingham Forest, just a ball played into Damsgaard and a first time pass over the top for Wissa. And he's so sharp, makes that run towards the ball and then back away towards the opposition goal, catches the Nottingham Forest defence off guard, and then it's just that beautiful finish, a right-footed dink over the keeper that tucks it away. And you can see him here against Bournemouth, just goal hanging, waiting for the opportunity to arise for a potential through ball and then coming alive and making that run in behind. And as soon as that opportunity comes about, because of that ability to time that movement back into the defensive line and then make that run in behind, there's no one that's able to catch him once he gets up to speed. Beautiful ball by Yoane Wissa, and then again, beautiful dinked finish over the keeper. But then you've also got that penalty box movement that will become so useful against low blocks. You can see him here. Mbeumo on the ball, just casually making that run to the edge of the box, threatening that run in behind that defensive line. Instead, he stands still, creates a little yard of space, but as soon as he sees Mbeumo gets his head up, he makes another little dart. Just so clever and sharp with his movement, beautifully found by Mbeumo, and then again a sharp finish into the top right hand corner. And he also has the ability to be in the right place at the right time, positioning himself in between the goalposts, central in the penalty box. A trademark move that you can see at Newcastle. Here it's Damsgaard playing in the winger of Schade in behind. You see it on the opposite side for Newcastle with Bruno Guimaraes playing in behind Jacob Murphy or Elanga. And then in the box, in between the goalposts, ahead of the centre-backs is where you'll see Yoane Wissa. Beautiful ball by Schade, and again a lovely finish to tuck this away. You can see how his game will fit so perfectly with how Eddie Howe likes to set up his team. But although his movement gets him into dangerous positions, what he does at the end of that is what Newcastle have been missing this season. His finishing is so underrated. 19 Premier League goals last season without penalties. And if we look deeper into his data, you can see just how efficient he is in front of goal. Last season, he was 10th for shots taken, 6th in terms of shots on target, 10th for goals per shot, and he had the second best non-penalty XG in the entire Premier League. And I'm fine saying it now because he's on our team, but he loved terrorizing Newcastle. Here you can see him in that left-hand side channel, no real place to go, but he's comfortable on the ball, and he shifts that ball back inside, getting away from Dan Burn onto that stronger right foot, and his technique when finishing is so elite. Short, sharp backlift, short, sharp follow through. Beautiful technique to whip this into that bottom right hand corner. And if you look at his goal catalogue, you can see nearly every type of goal. From a bicycle kick against Chelsea to scoring with his weaker foot against Aston Villa from the edge of the box, curling it into that top left hand corner. Just ridiculous technique with his weaker foot. And even the scruffy goals, the ones that you have to get to the type of tally that he got last season. But there's more to Yoane Wissa's game than scoring goals that people overlook. When Voltemada drops deep, he relies a lot on his strength to pin the opposition defender and help us link play from that position. But Yoane Wissa also likes to drop deep, but in a different type of way. Yoane Wissa times his movement into those deep areas to avoid that pressure, and then plays and moves off any opposition pressure that comes towards him. And you can see him here against Luton, receiving that ball in the deepest midfield position, lots of space around him, and by the time the opposition player realizes, he plays that pass into Damsgaard and then makes a movement off him, receiving that ball back and driving at the back line. But this is where Yoane Wissa is so good, because he's not happy just to link play in those deep areas. He has the pace then to get into the penalty box as Mbeumo gets on the ball. And after a few scruffy deflections, he's found one-on-one with the keeper and tucks it away into that bottom right-hand corner. But to fit into an Eddie Howe team, you need to be just as good off the ball as you are on the ball. And Wissa works hard off the ball, but he's just as much of a threat when he's breaking from those deeper areas after he's won it. You can see him here against Brighton in that Brentford deep block, making that block on the cross. Just getting into a good position, working back for the team, but he's not happy with his work there. As the ball breaks out to that right-hand side position, he's got that pace to support a counter-attack, which Eddie Howe would love. And as that ball is played over the top for Mbeumo, he gets up towards the edge of the penalty box, arriving late. Mbeumo finds him perfectly, and it comes with a little bit of luck, but he tucks this away with a couple of deflections. But it's that ability to perform in that low block, something that we've been using this season to conserve energy and then break and counter, that will be so useful for Wissa when he returns. And he's just as comfortable using that pace in a high press. You saw him against Arsenal from a couple seasons ago, pressing nearly every one of the centre backs, ending up in Ramsdale, making a block on the ball, and ends up fortunately in a goal for Brentford. Because when you combine all these traits with an Eddie Howe system, Newcastle's attack is completely transformed. So how will Newcastle set up with Wissa in the team? Now I think this is how we will set up with Yoane Wissa in the team, and the biggest difference between Voltemada and Yoane Wissa is Wissa will be happy to stay high and occupy the centre backs. And when we have that ball anywhere on the pitch, Yoane Wissa is happy to make those runs into the channel or directly in behind. And I think that's going to be so useful, especially with his pace up top. And you've got to remember that Yoane Wissa is comfortable in those wide areas, taking on players 1v1. And I think that left-hand side is so interesting, with Anthony Gordon dropping deep to pick up the ball, Ramsey in that left half space. If Yoane Wissa makes that run, as Gordon drops deep into that left-hand channel, we immediately get up the pitch, and then he can combine with Anthony Gordon, Lewis Hall, and Jacob Ramsey down that left-hand side. But it's not just those runs in behind, it's about that penalty box movement. And one of Newcastle's trademark moves, as I spoke about earlier, is Bruno Guimaraes getting on the ball down that right-hand side, in that right half space, Livramento and Elanga on that right touch line, Tonali occupying that back line, and either one of Elanga or Livramento making that run in behind. And Yoane Wissa is probably one of the best penalty box poachers in the Premier League. He's so good at making that movement at the right time away from his marker to create that half yard of space. And I think we'll get a lot of goals with Bruno Guimaraes playing that ball in behind and then a crossing opportunity for Elanga into Wissa's feet. Now we are unlikely to see both Voltemada and Wissa in the team from the start of games. It will take a change in system, and I just don't think that Eddie Howe will go for this type of change. However, there is one weakness we've had this season that Yoane Wissa and Voltemada can fix. When we're chasing games, it's chaotic. It doesn't seem there's any real plan or any real threat to the opposition. But now, we have the ability to bring on either one of Voltemada or Wissa and have two strikers up top. similar to when we had Isak and Wilson when chasing games. And the best thing about it, and something that probably works better than Isak and Wilson, is that their styles dovetail so well with each other. Voltemada loves to drop deep into those little half spaces, and at that point we'll still have that focal point of Wissa that's able to make those runs in behind. And at the end of that movement, he is a clinical finisher, and that's why his pace, movement and finishing ability will completely transform our attack. If you like this episode, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And talking of summer transfer signings, check out this breakdown on why Malik Chow is one of the best centre backs in the Premier League right now.